Hi everyone, welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. This is Biz Gormley from EPIP, and I am here in our headquarters office in New York and joined on the line by our phenomenal speakers, Joelle, Asaro, Berman, and Hali, who are going to be leading us through today's webinar on transformational philanthropy through giving circles. Excuse me. I'm going to take a minute to tell you a little bit about EPIP and some housekeeping and technical tools for today's webinar, and then we'll pass the mic over to our presenters. So welcome to everyone who's here who has been part of the EPIP community for a while, and welcome to everyone who's new. We're really excited to have you all here today. Wanted to give you a quick overview of what we do here at EPIP. EPIP stands for Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy, and we are a national network of foundation professionals, social entrepreneurs, and other change makers who strive for excellence in the practice of philanthropy. And we do this by providing a platform for our community to connect with others, to learn and practice leadership skills, and to inspire emerging ideas in the social sector. So I would love to be in touch with any of you who may have questions about membership or events. We have 13 now local chapters across the country, so wherever you may be, happy to connect you to other EPIPers in the area or to help you start a new chapter if your region doesn't yet have one. You can email me at biz@epip.org, and I look forward to hearing from you. Wanted to make sure that you mark your calendars for our next upcoming webinars. In 2 weeks, we'll be back here at 3 p.m. to welcome the funders for LGBTQ issues. Their annual tracking report is going to be coming out, and they're going to take an hour to talk to us about the importance of philanthropic advocacy for LGBTQ communities at all levels of seniority and philanthropy. So whether you have just begun your career or you are hoping you are many years in, we hope that you will join to hear highlights and trends in the field and ways that you can put them into action. And then 2 weeks after that, on March 16, actually at 4 p.m., we're going to be focusing on implicit bias in grant making. So please check out our event page, epip.org/events. You'll see all of these webinars and more, as well as the local chapter events that are coming up. Technical notes for today's webinar, just some housekeeping. You'll see in your control panel that there's a question box, and I'd like to ask that if you have any issues, if you can't hear, if you can't see, if there's issues with any of the technical elements of today's webinar, just drop a note in there and we'll do our best to help you out. You can also use the question box for your actual questions. At a couple points throughout the webinar today, I know our presenters are going to ask you some questions. You can use that box to type in your answers. And if you have questions that come up during the webinar or at the end in our question and answer session, just go ahead and type them in there. If you're following us on social media and you're either live tweeting or posting about the event, please use the hashtag EPIPwebinar so we can track all the commentary together. Just a note that today's webinar will be recorded, and at the end you will receive a short survey that gives you a chance to share your feedback on today's webinar and ideas for content you'd love to see in the future. So please take a moment to fill that out. So moving into today's presentation, EPIP is really excited to welcome our speakers and also to be given the chance to talk about giving circles. Our chapter, as I said, we have 13 chapters around the country, and already 5 of them have been leading dynamic and engaging programming on the topic of giving circles. In Los Angeles and Philadelphia, they've even had giving circles. So if you're a part of an EPIP chapter or you're interested in starting one, definitely take note on today's lessons and think about whether it's a good fit for your chapter to take on giving circles as a group. If you'd like to learn more about the ways that EPIP has gotten involved with giving circles in the past, you can click on the link provided here. We'll make sure it's posted within the week on our archives in the Wednesday webinar tab of our website. But just a note to say that we are huge fans of giving circles and excited to see how you guys put these lessons into action. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to welcome our wonderful speakers today. We have Joelle, Asaro, Berman, as I said, and Hali, who are joining us and have put a lot of work into today's presentation, but also are incredibly dedicated to this work in our communities. So thank you to them for all you guys do and for all you've done to make today possible. And I'm going to pass the torch.
Great.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Biz and EPIP, for hosting this webinar. We're really excited to talk to all of you today about giving circles. My name is Joelle Berman. I know my hair looks different from that photo. We were just talking about how we probably look pretty different than our headshots. But I'm really excited to talk to all of you today. I work for an organization called Amplifier, which I'll be talking about a little bit more later in the webinar. But in the meantime, I'm just excited to talk to you about giving circles. I have a very biased opinion and think that they are the most fun way to give your money away. I've been working in the nonprofit sector for about almost 12 years, and I'm very excited to be speaking with all of you and with the EPIP network on giving circles.
Hi everyone, my name is Hali. I'm one of the co-founders of the Asian Women Giving Circle, and we're about 10 years old, and we've raised and given away $700,000, a bit more than that, to over 70 projects in New York City, all around women and girls who use the tools of arts to bring about social change in their communities. And I'm also a superly biased fan of giving circles, and we're excited to have this conversation with you today.
Great, so we're just going to quickly go over some of the topics we're going to cover today, and we promise to try to keep this webinar as interactive as possible. I know when I'm on a webinar, I'm like super tempted to like continue doing my work and checking my email, but like if we're doing our jobs well, we're going to have you super entertained and involved, and we're going to be asking you a number of polls and questions throughout to get some feedback from you in real time that will help guide our presentation and enable us to sort of get a sense of what you're really looking for and what you're passionate about. So through this webinar, we're going to be covering the origins of giving circles, where they come from. They actually have some really interesting origin stories. We're going to talk about what they are, what giving circles are. We keep saying this term. You will learn what it means, and what makes them a unique vehicle for philanthropy. We're going to be talking about giving circles and how they relate to justice work. And we're going to be showcasing some examples, some real-life examples of giving circles. And in addition to that, we're going to be talking about the foundation's relationship with giving circles and what it would look like for a foundation to potentially host one. And finally, we're going to close with some ideas that you can start thinking about in terms of how to start your own giving circle. And that could be among your friends, your family, your personal networks, whatever it might be. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Oh no, I took us to the very end. Hold on. You're going to now see the entire presentation. Hold on. Yeah, Biz, help us out.
Well, I can just start talking.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about where giving circles.
Oh wait, we actually have a poll first. So before we talk about the origin of giving circles, one of the things we wanted to understand was how you would describe your employer. So we wanted to get a sense of where you're coming from. Biz, take the poll away.
So everyone, if you could just take a second to click on this poll, which of the following options best describe your employer? If you could take a second to vote, it would be great to see who's on the line.
Okay, most people from foundations, that makes sense.
Okay. Awesome. So about 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to close the poll. If you still haven't voted, please go ahead and do so. All right. Looks like, as Joelle said, we have about 56% from foundations, 22% from nonprofits, 19% from philanthropic advisory firms, and 4% from other types of organizations.
Great. Okay, thank you everyone for sharing that. Now, Biz, I'm going to let you turn to the next slide lest I mess it all up again. So I'm going to let Hali take it from here, and we're going to be talking about the origins of giving circles.
So where do giving circles come from? They do have their roots in ancient mutual benefit societies. Some of the words that we're collecting, that I've heard from friends and colleagues in Mexico, they're called tandas. In Nigeria, isoso, souks in Martinique, sols in Haiti. Arisons in Indonesia, there's many, almost every culture has a similar idea of a shared savings society. But most of this country's early giving circles were formed by women to collect funds and collect their voices to bring about social change. And giving circles can run the gamut, from dinner parties getting together to collect pocket money to give towards neighborhood causes, all the way to a group of women who have recently formed called Women Moving Millions, who have literally raised millions and millions of dollars to bring about positive social change for women and girls around the world. In Korea, this idea is called a ge. So just briefly, if Aviva, Joelle, Hali, and Alex, hi Alex from EPIP, if we had formed a ge together right now, and each of us put in $250 in the ge, and we met once a month for lunch, there would be $1,000 in the pot, and every month one of us would take turns taking home that pot. So it would be $1,000 for you, $1,000 for me next month, $1,000 for Alex next, and $1,000 for Aviva the following. So if Joelle takes her $1,000 and leaves and quits the circle, that's no good for the rest of us because the pot has just been diminished. So you can see that for a ge to work, and as in any of these shared things to work, there has to be trust. I have to be able to find her, to know where she is if she's run away with money, and purpose. It also fun, getting together for in community and in communion, drinking, eating, sharing our lives. These are the things that make these ventures work.
Great. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about some Giving Circle networks, namely Amplifier, which is the one that I help run. Amplifier helps support and build and sustain giving circles that are inspired by Jewish values. It just so happens that the Jewish community has a long history of both individual and collective giving, and a couple years ago we looked around and saw all kinds of groups coming together in our community, whether they were calling themselves venture philanthropy funds or women's foundations, or even giving circles or teen foundations. We realized that they were all premised on this model of pooling collective funds and then deciding together how they were going to give them away, because that's essentially the definition of a giving circle. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could provide services and support to all of these people who are essentially doing the same thing and who could benefit from being connected with one another. And in addition to that, couldn't we take this model and let anyone do it, regardless of how much money they had, how old they were, where they were based, or what they were passionate about, and really leverage the power of this new philanthropic vehicle to enable more people to give with passion and empowerment and through educated and strategic philanthropy. So we built Amplifier, and today it's a network that connects more than 80 giving circles across the country and the world that are inspired by Jewish values. And we're also in conversation with lots of other giving circles and giving circle networks like Hali's and EPIP and a few other networks we're going to be talking with you about, because we feel like we have a lot to learn from other cultures and from other giving circles that have been doing this work for a while. A lot of the work that we do and a lot of the education and processes we help people build in their giving circles are similar across all of these lines, and so I think Kelly is going to talk a few more about that.
So the Asian Women Giving Circle is part of the APIP, which stands for Asian American Pacific Islanders in Philanthropy. APIP went about and tried to build the Giving Circle movement in the Asian American community across the country, and in 5 years they did an amazing job. So there's 50 Asian Pacific American giving circles around the country. I think this network comprises over 2,000 people, and I think it's given away $2.2 million. Alex, please comment if I'm wrong. $2.2 million so far to over 400 organizations. The Community Investment Network is another network of giving circles, primarily in the African American community. They've given away $250,000 since 2004. Social Venture Partnerships is another one. It's a little bit of a higher bar. I think individuals in the U.S. give on average $5,000 a year to be part of this network. But they're international, and they've given away millions of dollars in support of socially progressive causes and issues around the world. Then there's the Women's Collective Giving Grant-Making Network, which is all around women's giving circles around the country, given away millions of dollars. And then, as I mentioned before, there's the Women Moving Millions, which I think is the biggest one I've ever heard of. They've given away $600 million internationally to bring about a better life and world for women and girls.
So that's just a taste of some of the known Giving Circle networks out there in the world, and I think by all coming together and pooling our knowledge, we'll have a lot to learn from one another. Before we move on to the next section, we have another poll, and Viz, take it away.
All right, so we are curious to hear more about your experience with Giving Circles. So if you could please go ahead and take a peek at this poll and click the answers that most appropriately apply to you.
Oh my goodness, look at all these people who are involved in Giving Circles already. That's awesome.
Just about 10 more seconds. If you haven't gotten a chance to vote yet, please go ahead and choose which is the best answer for you. Great. So about 35% of the folks on the call today are actively involved. 8% have collaborated as a funder, 8% have worked for an organization funded by Giving Circle, and 50% have different relationships with Giving Circles.
So we're very intrigued by what that 50% other is, but we'll have to get at that. If you want to chat your answer into the question box, feel free, and we're very curious, and we'll take a look. So we figured we'd start with the basics, talking about Giving Circles. I know I've already described them a little bit, but here's our basic 101. A Giving Circle is a group of people, could be friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, whoever, who come together to give. And that means that they pool their charitable donations and go through a process as a group and decide together how to allocate their money. Something that makes Giving Circles unique as a philanthropic practice is that instead of giving on your own, they're really about the power of giving together, and that has benefits on many, many levels. They're also pretty different from family foundations, which are, of course, exclusive in their memberships and who gets to make funding decisions, and which also require a much higher level of capital to establish, and also various overhead and management costs. Giving Circles are much more flexible. The dollars contributed are completely up to the members, and the oversight is also usually up to the members. If a Giving Circle is being hosted by an organization, then it can be overseen by one of the organization's professionals. But largely, Giving Circles are just a super flexible way to give collectively, whether you're doing it on your own or within a more organized group. And here's a few things that set Giving Circles apart. They're really a way for you and your friends and your family or networks to address an issue that you really care about together. It helps you pool your knowledge, and it helps you parse out and figure out ways to research a lot of different complex issues happening in your community. It enables you to maximize your impact with pooled funds. One of the things that people say gets them most excited about being part of a Giving Circle is that they give away so much more money than they would have ever been able to give away on their own. As Hali mentioned before, they're super fun. They're usually done over food and drinks. They can be done in the comfort of homes, living rooms, in parks, on the beach, wherever you want to meet. And it's really a space to have conversations that are very difficult to have. There's really just no other venues to have conversations with your friends around how you want to change the world and what you're passionate about. And a Giving Circle really provides that space. You end up learning a lot about yourself and about your community and about your beliefs, and you build really important relationships and community with the people in your Giving Circle. Biz, if you could switch the slide. The most important thing about a Giving Circle, actually, though, is that it's about empowered philanthropy. Ooh, I think we skipped ahead a little bit. There we go, which puts you in the driver's seat. It starts, when we say empowered philanthropy, we mean that instead of reactive philanthropy, where somebody is soliciting you for a donation, where like a friend comes to you and says, hey, I'm running a race to support breast cancer, can you do this? Or someone homeless asks you for money on the subway, or whether your mom wants you to come to a charity event. Any of these are you responding to a solicitation, but what Giving Circles enable you to do is to step back and really start with some questions. What are you passionate about? What is the need that your community has right now? What challenges is your community facing? What are your values, and how can you connect them to your giving? How can this group together leverage their collective time and funds and energy to really make change that's going to last in their areas of focus? So it really puts you in the driver's seat and helps ask you all these questions first, and then enables you to go on a journey that'll help you identify causes and organizations that are addressing things that are connected to your passions. So in that vein, we're curious to know our next question, which is, what issues are you passionate about, either on a local or a national or a global level? And if you could chat into the question box some issues that you care about, whether they're very broad, like environment, poverty, racial justice, or very granular, like helping senior citizens in my neighborhood. We would love to hear what issues you're passionate about, so feel free to chat them into the question box now. And we'll wait as they come in and read them off. Great. Grassroots mobilization. Other issues that everyone on the webinar is passionate about. Come on. I know you're passionate about something.
I see food and health, environment, oceans, climate change.
Oh, one
health,
gender
gun control, gun control and subsequent gun violence, food systems and justice, transportation access and equity, gender justice, racial justice and injustice, racial justice, tenant organizing, anti-gentrification, cultivating leadership in girls and young women, education, gender justice, reproductive justice, Asian American
communities, some trends,
people of color. Yeah, lots of +1s on these, and also I see water access, economic inequality.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. This is an amazing list of issues, and it seems like some of you could get together and do giving circles of your own with all of your shared interests. So more about how you might be able to do that later, but from here we'll go to the next slide.
Well, it's related because, I mean, just imagine, for those of you who typed in responses there, imagine gathering a group of your buddies in your living room or in your favorite restaurant or whatever to talk about climate change, you know, and to really have a focused conversation about what you and 7 other friends can do to address this giant issue of climate change, whether you choose to address that globally or nationally or locally. And think about the powerful conversations that can come up in your personal life by bringing together people to pool money to fund in an area that you care about. Just what Joelle was saying before. I mean, what other opportunities do you have in your life? I mean, all of us have really busy lives with schools and kids and jobs and partners or whatever. You know, it's really hard to pull out even an hour or 2 hours a month to talk about these incredibly important things. And imagine doing that in concert, in communion with people who you love and care about, whose minds and hearts you really admire. And think about how powerful that can be personally and also politically. So that's our next section in a way. We're sort of saying that as Giving Circle people that philanthropy is a form of civic engagement from which many people have felt traditionally excluded. So if you think about being a new immigrant to this country, maybe you're here legally, maybe you're here illegally, maybe you have a bank, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't really trust a bank. But one thing that you can get or tap into is a culturally familiar circle. Like in the Korean community, it's this ge that I described before. So if you're not really sure how to navigate in this new country, one of the things that you can find if you meet other people like you is tapping into a culturally familiar, shared savings experience like this. Giving circles are a way, using those same cultural phenomenon, a democratic way for all people to get involved in philanthropy. The Giving Circle model celebrates this kind of community-driven process. The advantage is that the people who are making the funding decisions are actually people who live in the community. So it's very grassroots, it's very democratic. It's hard to get more democratic than that. Our Giving Circle, the Asian Women Giving Circle, we actually ask people to vote. So anyone who gives a single dollar to our shared grants pot gets a vote on who should get the money that year. It's a bit of a controversy, which we can talk about another time, but we believe it's really important because, number one, it educates all of the donors to our Giving Circle, whether they give $1 or $10,000, and it educates them about the cool projects that are being done in our communities, and it really involves them, one person, one vote, in who's going to get the dollars that are collectively raised. Historically, marginalized groups have come to giving circles as a way to amplify their voices, to be heard in ways that they weren't being heard as individuals. Giving circles can also change the relationship that people have to giving money away and the people receiving it. One of the most meaningful pieces of feedback that the Asian Women Giving Circle got from a couple of our grantees was this great woman called Slanty-Eyed Mama. Her real name is Kate Rigg, but her performing name is Slanty-Eyed Mama. She got a grant from us, and she said that it was the first time she ever got Asian money for her progressive spoken word political activism performance pieces. And she said that getting money from us felt like getting money from aunties who were cheering on the sidelines, you know? And this is just a fundamentally different feeling than getting money from the Ford Foundation. I love the Ford Foundation, and I want all of our projects to get money from the Ford Foundation. But giving circles are approachable. We're like neighbors. We're nimble, flexible, on the ground. You know, we're not like remote and out there and hard to get hold of. You know, we're quite easy to get hold of. So I think that just sets a really different tone in the traditional philanthropic relationship where there's like the seeker on this side and the giver on that side. And if you're part of a giving circle, it's just a closer, more intimate relationship, which I think many of us are seeking in other parts of our lives. So why not seek that in our charitable and philanthropic lives as well?
Great. Next slide. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the giving circles out there, and Hali talked a little bit about hers, the Asian Women's Giving Circle, but primarily we would group giving circles into two main buckets. And that is those giving circles that are hosted by individuals for their friends, families, and personal networks or colleagues. And then there are giving circles that are hosted by organizations. And so you might be thinking, why would an organization want to host a giving circle? Especially if they're essentially telling people that they can give the money anywhere. The money is not necessarily going toward the organization. Well, a lot of organizations are starting giving circles as a new way to engage constituencies and audience members that they have no other forms of engagement for, particularly alumni. They seem to be a great way for organizations to engage alumni who've gone through certain programs and who have, especially those who have already formed a cohort and a community together and who want an excuse to stay in touch beyond the scope of the program. A giving circle is a really great way to bring alumni together and to help involve them more deeply and philanthropically in the mission areas of your organization and to educate them about the mission areas that you hold dear and how to support them philanthropically. They're really great leadership development tools. A lot of organizations use giving circles to groom future board members and leadership committee members, and they really help educate people about the variety of issues that your organization has expertise in. And they also, most importantly, build a culture of philanthropy among those involved with your organization. Even before you fundraise from people, you have to make sure that people are in the habit of giving. And giving circles really help to develop like what we would call a giving practice. And what's really interesting about giving circles is that they do this in a really fun and low barrier setting that enables even people who are new to giving, who have never given at all and who are giving for the first time, potentially in small dollar amounts, to be able to give so really thoughtfully and to connect themselves and their values and their passions to their giving so that it becomes a sustainable habit. So we wanted to give you a couple examples of giving circles. One of the ones that we work with is this photo on the right of the slide. You'll see a bunch of people wearing aprons and chef's hats. That's Hali for Hunger. The Hali for Hunger alumni giving circle is one manifestation of how this organization uses giving circles, but Hali for Hunger is actually a national organization with dozens of chapters on campuses across the country, and it takes college students and teaches them how to bake challah. Challah is a bread that is used ritually by Jews to celebrate Friday night Shabbat every week. It's really delicious. I recommend that you try some, get your hands on some.
Every week you eat challah.
If we can. So I know, right? It's a good gig. So they teach them how to bake all different kinds of challah, and they get really creative with their recipes, and then they sell it on campus, and then they take the proceeds, and together as a group they get together and decide how to allocate these proceeds across their community to different agencies that are fighting hunger locally. And this helps these college students understand how to address hunger and how to allocate dollars to address that. And once they graduate college and can no longer be part of their chapters, they have the opportunity to join a national virtual giving circle of any alum that's ever been through this program, and it's co-led by 2 alumni who are chairs of the Giving Circle, and they both get a budget to be allocated from the organization itself, which has given them some money to work with, but then they also each can contribute to the pooled funds as individuals, and then they decide on how to address hunger nationally as a group by supporting national anti-hunger organizations. So that's one example of a giving circle that is totally lay-led, but under the auspices of an organization that supports it and becomes its fiscal sponsor, and who obviously helps to recruit for it, and who uses it as an alumni engagement tool.
I love that story.
So do I.
I've read it a couple times.
I think they still continue to eat a lot of the olive too.
So I guess the Asian Women Giving Circle, who you've heard me talk about this a few times, we're an example of the other kind. We're just a group of individual women. Many of us have led nonprofit organizations in the Asian American community in New York City, including me, mostly in domestic violence and education of women's and girls' issues for 20 years. And we saw personally how hard it was to raise money in our Asian American communities, not because there's a lack of generosity, but just because there's not a tradition of organized philanthropy in the American sense, in the American charitable sense. So taking some cultural ideas like the gay and other ideas like that in Bengali communities, Indian communities, Chinese American communities, plus these personal experiences of having a tough time raising money in our communities. And as EPIP study has shown, a few years ago they did a study on how much money Asian American communities get from the largest foundations in America, and we get less than 1%. Less than 1% of big foundation dollars go to Asian American communities. The reasons for that are many, and that's the subject of another webinar, that there's obviously a disparity in terms of the percentage of the population that Asian people represent, are Asian communities in need, and the dollars that Asian communities get from big traditional philanthropies in the US. So those were the reasons that a group of us got together 10 years ago to form the Asian Women Giving Circle. I just want to do a shout out to our brother circle, who are the dinner guys. They're also a group of individuals who are just meeting socially for dinner. And one of the fellows decided, we should do something charitable around this because we're gay, we're Asian American, there's no money going to our people. So this group of dinner guys who were just social friends started doing a giving circle. And they fund SAGE, which is an elder gay services organization in New York City, and because of the dinner guys' pretty small amounts of money, I want to say it's $30,000 or less, SAGE has something like quintupled their outreach to the elder gay Asian American community in New York City. So it's just a really great example of how one effort with not even that much money can have such an outsized impact on an underserved community in our great city.
Wonderful. Thanks, Hali. So the next question we have for you, all of you, is for those of you that work for foundations, which it sounds like about half of you do, please share in the question box how your foundation has worked with giving circles in the past. Has it been a fiscal sponsor? Has it facilitated giving circles? Has it helped recruit for them? Please share your answers because we're curious how you've worked with giving circles so far. We'll just wait a minute for those answers to come in. Oh, and yes, Janessa, we're happy to share the slides.
Yeah, well, everyone's typing in their thoughts. Just so everyone knows, the recording and the slides, as well as extra resource links, will all be up on the website by the end of the week. So thank you for asking.
8.
Great, wow, okay, Jinder, awesome. There's currently 8 active giving circles at your foundation. That's awesome. People use their foundations to recommend giving circles for those who are interested in joining. Some of you are hosting giving circles. Great, some of you are partnering and supporting developments of women's foundations. Some of you have not yet engaged with giving circles, but we're going to show you how. One of you have started up a Young Latino Professionals Giving Circle. That's awesome. Love that. Well, keep sharing those. We love hearing about these stories. Got it. So Hallie's going to tell us a little bit more about how foundations can really make the most of your relationship with Giving Circles.
We have some ideas, and it's by no means comprehensive. I mean, be creative, but as a Giving Circle person, we love it when foundations match us. Meaning, so the way that works is that the foundation says, "Hey, Hali, if the Asian Women Giving Circle can raise $10,000 for what you're doing, we'll match you and we'll give you $10,000." That's awesome. That's our favorite way that foundations can work with Giving Circles. And EPIP was able to get matches for all of their Giving Circles up to a certain amount for, I think, almost the whole 5 years of the project, which was great. Foundations can also, and the win for the foundation is that they will be building philanthropy in communities where they might not have worked before. So that's the gain, that's the win for from the foundation side. Foundations can also host Giving Circles by being a fiscal sponsor for a Giving Circle or helping to generate new circles. The benefit for the foundation in doing that is that new donors will come into the family. It enables you to showcase new grantees that the foundation might not have been able to do. One of the things I think that would be really interesting to an idea to pursue is use the Giving Circle as a test. If a foundation or a family foundation or a big foundation is thinking about funding in a certain area but isn't quite sure how that might look or feel, find a Giving Circle that does that. Like, find the dinner guides. If they're thinking about funding elder gay men, services for elder gay men, and they haven't really done that, find a Giving Circle that's been doing that, because I bet there's one out there. And it's a way that you can test to see how you can get engaged at a higher level. Think about what the staff capacity is, obviously, at the foundation. Sometimes, Giving Circles are all really different. Sometimes it might be 10 people. In the Asian Women Giving Circles case, we bring 200-some donors with us who give to our fund every year. So that's a lot more work than a Giving Circle that's simply 10 individuals and they don't do any fundraising outside of that. So obviously you have to think about things like staff capacity and administrative capacity when you get into thinking about Giving Circles. And then I have a caveat too, because I'm aware of one instance where a foundation set up a Giving Circle that really the foundation wanted to be a fundraising arm for the foundation. And they didn't give the Giving Circle the autonomy that the Giving Circle really wanted. So it's really important to be clear on from the outset, what is the goal of the Giving Circle? Is it to be fundraising? Is it to bring more money into the foundation from people that they wouldn't otherwise get money from? Be really clear about that. Is it about growing a base of donors? Reaching into a donor community that maybe the foundation hasn't reached into before? Be really clear about that too. How long is the circle going to run for? Is it a 1-year project? Is it a 3-year project? Is the amount of money that those circles, that circle or those circles, the amount of money that's going to come in, does that really justify the staff person's time? Or is it a program objective to diversify your funding base, or to bring in new young donors, or to grow women? If you treat it as a program, then that's a different way of looking at the costs and the expenses, if it's purely, or is it just purely about the bottom line?
We always say one of our ways of focusing people on the true benefits of Giving Circles is that it's really not about the money. Sometimes the money is kind of like the gravy that happens. It's the awesome thing that happens anyway. But what's really happening in a Giving Circle is deep education and community building and empowerment. And we would encourage foundations and organizations that are considering hosting them to really think in those terms in order to be successful. So next slide. We want to give you the tools that you will need to think about doing this on your own if that's something that's really interesting to you. So in order to start a Giving Circle up with your friends or your family or your networks, and I've started a Giving Circle for 8 of my friends here in Brooklyn. We each contributed $100 just as an experiment to get us started, and we had 3 meetings, and we decided to support we actually had a broad range of things that we were passionate about, but ended up supporting 3 organizations that were actually, one was focused on helping with the Syrian refugee crisis, and 2 were focused on helping with prisoner reentry back into society here in New York. And anti-recidivism work. So we went on this incredible journey together and really didn't know a whole lot about these issues, and really became a lot better educated about them over the course of really only 6 months, and it only took 3 meetings to get us to do this. And in the end, we felt so passionate about our contributions that we ended up giving a lot more than we originally intended. So if you're excited to think about doing this with people on your own, just some questions to get you started is, who will you invite? What are the kinds of people you would want to come to your giving circle? And how much money will you ask them to contribute? You could think about starting a giving circle based on a particular issue that you know will attract people who are passionate about that issue to the table, or you can start a giving circle based on the people and then decide together where the Venn diagram is of your shared interests so that that can direct your circle's efforts. Will you have social and educational events as part of your giving circle? The giving circles in the Amplifier Network typically celebrate Jewish holidays together. They do Passover Seders together. They celebrate Shabbat dinners together. So it really becomes a way to be more than just about giving, but it's really about forming a community of intention together. So if you have any interest whatsoever in starting a giving circle on your own, name some kind of groups of people that would be a part of it or some ideas you might have. You can chat those into the question box. We'd be curious to see what kinds of things you'd like to get off the ground. Anybody have ideas for giving circles they want to share? Or even issues that you would want to confront in the giving circle? Okay, great. So people who are interested in giving internationally. One with your feminist book club. Okay, book clubs are perfect places and very natural breeding grounds for giving circles. You're already meeting regularly and you're already educating yourselves, obviously, about a particular issue that you're all very passionate about. That would be a great place to start one. Anybody else? Okay, well, as the ideas come in, we'll be sure to track them. That's really exciting one so far. Really just to wrap up, because we're getting close to the 15-minute mark, we wanted, Biz, if you could go to the next slide, we wanted to show you what you can do to learn more, whether you're interested in starting your own giving circle for your friends and your networks, or if your organization or foundation is interested in considering to host one. Amplifier is one great resource. We have tons of free resources on our resource library on our website, amplifiergiving.org.
It's amazing. Go to their website.
Thank you, Hali. And if Hali's using it, you should obviously take that as a cue that a lot of our resources can be adapted for other cultural audiences or secular audiences. There is, of course, we approach our philanthropy through the lens of Jewish values, but a lot of our materials can be used across any group. And we have facilitators' guides on guiding your giving circle and conversations around mission and values and focus areas. And we have template letters that you can use to recruit people to your giving circle. So lots to see at amplifiergiving.org. If your foundation or organization is interested in hosting a giving circle, this resource that's in the slide called the Handbook for Giving Circles Hosts can be found on givingforum.org, which is the website of the Forum of Regional Associations of Grant Makers. They have incredible resources there. And finally, of course,
you can call me, email me, I'll help you start. Danny, email me. I'll help you start your feminist book club one. That's, I think, a great idea.
So you can contact Hali at her email address, and you can also contact me. My email address is there under Amplifier at joelle@natan.org. And if you're interested in exploring giving circles that are open to new members, there are several listed on Amplifier's website. You can check in with EPIP, you can check in with the Community Investment Network, or Women's Collective Giving and Grant Making Network, all of which we spoke about earlier. And now we're happy to turn it over to questions.
Thank you, guys. I apologize, everyone, for the slightly sporadic mouse activity. My computer is very sensitive today, so I apologize for the jumping around. But before we jump into questions, everyone can feel free to use the question box now for any questions you may have following the presentation. While people are typing in their questions, I absolutely want to reinforce the amazingness of the resources that are in front of you right now. In preparation for this call, I dug in myself, and I think even if you've just joined today because you're slightly curious, the chance to learn from what has been done and see what people are doing, I think will be really inspiring. So I encourage everyone to take a peek. Our first question is, are there takeaways from your time with Giving Circles that could inform collaboration between granting foundations?
That's really an interesting question. So there's a really interesting new initiative that just launched that Danny, I invite you to take a look at. It's called Blue Meridian Partners. It's actually a collaboration of major grant-making foundations coming together to form a giving circle, and it was just announced in the Chronicle of Philanthropy last week. But it's a great example of what can happen when a lot of foundations that are interested in tackling a major intractable issue that would require a lot of resources and a lot of brain power to tackle, leverage their incredible resources and come together on their grant-making work, and together they're going to set their research agenda and really delve into the areas of this, I believe it's education and youth access to education, to really understand where they can have the greatest impact and what values they want to use to carry their grant-making process. Amplifier's lead funder, the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Foundation, is actually part of that group and has joined with lots of other foundations to tackle this issue. And so that's one really good example of how grant-making foundations can even come together as giving circles themselves to address major issues together. I think that a lot of the building blocks of what makes up a giving circle around connecting people to their values and really understanding the Venn diagram, I keep coming back to this image of where your values intersect around how and why you give, and using that as a template to guide your grant making is one that grant making foundations can use when they're looking to partner with other grant-making foundations. Like, what values are you looking to express through your giving together and through your collaboration, and how can your collaboration bring more to the table rather than even more than just money, but like how can it bring particular expertise and time and talent and networks together that you previously could not leverage. I would say that's a lot of the work that giving circles do. They map their assets beyond just money and figure out how they can contribute their time and talent to the table. So hopefully those are some answers.
The giving circles are also about expanding who is at the table. So just recently there was another collaborative announced by the New York Women's Foundation. I think it's committing $10 million, and the Novo Foundation, and some of this money is going to be matched by the Speaker of the City Council. So the city government is going to come into this too, all around women and girls empowerment in New York City. So this is going to be tens of millions of dollars focused on women and girls in New York City. And one of the key parts of this initiative is expanding who is going to be at the table to figure out where the money is going to go and what the problems are that are affecting real women and girls in New York City. So they want to include giving circles to be at that table. They want to include some of the women and girls who might be who work for organizations or who might be receiving some of these services. So this is a really great change, because it's really expanding who is sitting at the table. Whereas 50 years ago, it was like the funder over there and the receiver over here, and that was it. So just think about the possibilities when you expand the Holland table.
Awesome. Speaking of expanding, the next question is actually about technology and online platforms and where you guys may have seen these. It says, what experience and/or learning do you have around using technology or online platforms to support and scale giving circles?
Sure. Jordan, that's a great question. I invite you to take a look at our website, amplifiergiving.org. We built that website as part of a co-design process because we really wanted to create technology that giving circles could use both to launch and to manage themselves. And one of the biggest tools that we created, and one of the most unique things that I'm really proud that we created on our website, is called our Common Grant Application. We have two main directories on our website, a giving circle directory of all the giving circles we work with, and our organization directory that it lists like almost 900 organizations, and what they have the opportunity to do when they fill out a profile is they can fill out what's called a common grant application, and that enables them to essentially apply for a grant opportunity with any giving circle listed on our website, and that enables that really helps to right-size the amount of work on the organization's end and enables them to really understand that they can easily access these funds, and it allows giving circles to easily access lots of great information about organizations. So that's one way that we hope to scale the utility of giving circles. And also we have lots of free resources and Giving Circle management tools that we've made available on our website. So we're really excited about that.
There's so much more work that could be done in this area, though, Jordan. You totally hit the nail. Tons more, especially around collecting money online and giving grants online. That's a huge potential area.
Yep.
Next question is about kind of the sustaining of Giving Circles. Do you have advice on incorporating new members or into existing Giving Circles, or how Giving Circles evolve as some members move on and some stay?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think EPIP has a, I wish Alex could chime in, but our Giving Circle is 10 years old, which I understand is a bit of an anomaly. But I have to say that, you know, kind of what Joelle said before, the giving money away part is the gravy. Like, the thing that really keeps us together is our fondness for each other. You know, I have to, in New York City, the women in my Giving Circle, they're my New York City family. You know, we have taken trips together, we celebrate birthdays together, we've celebrated divorces together, we've sent kids off to college, we've buried parents. You know, I mean, it's a 10-year relationship. I'm so fond of them. You know, they're really my sisters. And not every Giving Circle can recreate that. You know, I think we got kind of lucky, but we're also very forgiving. You know, if someone has twins, they can't be part of the Giving Circle for a while, and that's fine. If someone takes a big old corporate job, they probably can't come to meetings for a while, and that's fine. Like, we're very flexible and okay with the vicissitudes of life, and I think that that's a really, and we're very committed to having fun together, and we're not like, none of us wants to be part of another like committee or board where there's all these responsibilities, and you know, we want to keep it fun because this is an extracurricular activity. So if you can try to keep those values at the forefront as you're forming or joining one, I think that will help sustain it.
Yeah, and I would also say that something that you should think about is that sometimes Giving Circles, you know, they're just like any other group, there's like a forming and storming stage, and what we've learned is that sometimes it takes a couple grant cycles, whether that's a 6-month period or a year period, for the right people to get to the table. And so I would be patient in those early portions and phases of the Giving Circle, because some people may think that they really want to do it and get there and realize collective giving is not for them, because it's not for everyone. But then eventually new people will find their way to the table as a result of the people who are in it, who know other people who are interested. So I would definitely create room for the members themselves to invite more people into the circle, of course.
Another question is, are there resources you'd recommend to organizations to help them better locate Giving Circles that might share their mission and values? And if not, do you have recommendations for seeking and connecting with independent Giving Circles?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Sometimes Giving Circles are hard to find. This is why we're creating a directory of the ones that we know of that are inspired by Jewish values on our website. But of course, any of the other networks that we've been talking about, whether it's EPIP or Social Venture Partners or Community Investment Network, all of these have directories and vast networks of Giving Circles. And also, a lot of times Giving Circles actually have their own websites, and so we would, you could even just do a Google search to find Giving Circles out there who operate completely independently of any networks and on their own and in their own ways. Because Giving Circles are still, like, even though they're kind of old in a way, they're still really new, and there hasn't yet been a way to find all of them in the universe, the known universe. I mean, even the ones within our community, we're still uncovering them all the time. So if there is a particular Giving Circle that your community foundation is interested in locating, you can certainly come to us, and we, through our networks, we can try to like hunt some down for you. But I think what you're doing is identifying yet another need of finding a way to categorize and really find a way to locate all of the existing Giving Circles that are currently out there in the universe right now.
Thanks. We have a question. What are your thoughts, pros and cons, of shorter versus longer funding cycles?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Totally depends on the mission of the Giving Circle and how many people are in it. I have found, even among my 8 friends, and I feel like I have to just concede that this might be a New York City thing, but to calendar like 8 people's schedules in New York is very difficult, and we were only able to meet once every 2 months. And so as a result of that, with 3 meetings, that was a 6-month grant cycle. Some people take a year. Some organization-hosted giving circles meet 6 times over the course of a year to do their grant making. It's really just about your goals for the giving circle. So if education and interaction with potential grantees and community building among those giving circle members are part of your goals, then maybe you need to spend more time and more meetings doing that, building that more intentionally into the grant making cycle. In terms of how long the grant making actually takes, it's really about putting your proposal, putting your RFP and your request for proposals out there into the world and finding how long it takes to narrow it down from your initial goal.
You might not even want to have an RFP process. I mean, there's so many options out there. You might know, I mean, I've heard of giving circles that where each member gets to pick one, an organization to give to, and it could be across the spectrum of all of social issues addressed. You know, I mean, it just kind of depends on the capacity. Like, how much do you have time to read to write and read RFPs? Do you even want to do that? Do you just want to have a social gathering where each person takes turns? I mean, there's like low-level engagement and high-level engagement depending on what your capacity is. Another question is, are you going to be hosted somewhere? Are you fiscally hosted somewhere? We're hosted at the Ms. Foundation for Women, so we must conform to their calendar in some ways. So that becomes a factor in how many grant cycles you can do in a year.
I would say a year should be the longest grant cycle you have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring it longer than that, and ideally it's closer to 6 to 8 months. I think just to give people, to keep the process moving and to keep people engaged. And again, if you're doing this informally among your friends, you can probably even shorten it from there depending on how involved a grant making process you want to execute.
Great. I know we're just up on the hour, so we have one more question, and then when you guys are done answering, we can close out. This question is, how is accountability managed with typical foundation grants? We collect reports. Is it fair to burden the recipient with reporting when it's a proactive gift like this?
Really good question. I think it goes back to something I mentioned before, which is right-sizing your expectations. It really just depends on the amount of money in the end that you're giving away. Like, what threshold of funds can you reasonably expect an organization to report back on their efforts to you? And again, how formal is your process? So if an organization is running a giving circle and you're giving away $10,000 grants, you may want to create a reporting system for that for your grant recipients to report back on certain progress that maybe releases the second payment of that grant. But if you're making a $1,000 donation or a $500 donation, it's not considered best practice to ask a grantee to report back on that. So it's really about also the capacity internally of your giving circle and what you want to expect and what you want to learn from your grantees. But I say it probably more than anything has to do with the dollar amount of the grant you're giving.
The fact that you're asking the question shows that you're cognizant of that.
That's really important.
Yeah.
This has been phenomenal. Thank you to everyone who joined and asked such rich questions. I know it would be wonderful for us to be able to sit in the same room or be able to see all of each other's faces, but just to have your responses to polls and really engaged questions has been a total value add to this experience. So thank you to all of our participants. Thank you so much, Joelle and Hali. You guys are inspiring and incredibly knowledgeable, definite experts. I feel like I have learned so much today. So thank you for all the time you put into this and for joining us at EPIP to talk about giving circles today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm just going to leave this slide up for a second while people are logging off. We're going to, again, be posting all the resources online. And if you have any questions, biz@epip.org. And we'll see you on the next call. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Nice.
Hooray.